Thanks for joining us today, and welcome to OpenInfra Live, the Open Infrastructure Foundation's weekly, hour-long interactive content series focusing on case studies running in production, open source demos, industry conversations, and the latest updates from the global open infrastructure community. We have some great content coming up in the next couple weeks, and we hope that you can join us every Thursday at 14 UTC, streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitch. My name is Kendall Nelson, and I am an Upstream Developer Advocate at the OpenInfra Foundation, and I will be your host this week. So today we are streaming live and would love for you to drop questions as we discuss our topic into the comment section of wherever it is that you're watching this, and we'll try to answer as many as we can throughout the show. So let's get rolling. Today, I'm being joined by some really awesome people, many of whom I've actually had the privilege of working with directly. And I will let them introduce themselves, and then we can jump into today's discussions about mentoring programs and onboarding into the OpenStack community. First up, we have Victoria. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course. Hi, everyone. I am Victoria Martinez de la Cruz. I am originally from Buenos Aires, Argentina, currently in Madrid, Spain. I'm a software engineer at Red Hat. And I started on open source because I was a really power user of open source at a very young age. And I was really amazed by tech and how people share their knowledge in this community. So that's how I become a contributor afterwards, thanks to Outreachy. Nowadays, I'm working as an upstream developer for the OpenStack Manila project. That's the shared file system as a service for OpenStack. And also wearing other hats within the community and Red Hat. Archana Kumari, up next.
So, hi everyone, this is Archana. I am a computer science graduate and I am currently interning here at OpenStack as an Outreachy intern. I've started my open source contribution with the Hacktoberfest back in, it's been 2 years from now. And now I'm currently here as a OpenStack intern contributor. So Ashley.
Thank you, Archana. Hi, I'm Ashley Rodriguez. I recently graduated from Boston University with a BS in computer engineering, and I am currently living in Boston. I started working with OpenStack through my senior design course. My project was to establish the foundation for Manila support in the OpenStack SDK, and we managed to push code for all the resources listed in the first 2 priority buckets in the spec. Currently, we have a Outreachy intern continuing what we started last fall, and I was also just hired by Red Hat as a software engineer, and I start in late June. Fatema?
Hello, I'm Fatema Sherif. I live in Cairo, Egypt. That's where the pyramids are, if you're familiar with them. I graduated from Cairo University, majoring in computer engineering. I interned in OpenStack through Outreachy in my 3rd year of college. Kendall here was my mentor. And also I interned in Microsoft around the same time as well. After graduation, I worked in the testing field of automotive industry for Vallejo for over a year. And then I switched. I'm currently working as front-end engineer in RISA for oil and gas, which is headquarters in Denver, Colorado. I was first introduced to open source in college. The whole concept of being open, sharing the code with the users for them to maintain, customize, and solve the issues was just fascinating for me. I heard about some programs that support the students to contribute, and that's where I knew about Outreachy, and I found Storyboard to be the most interesting project for me to intern in, and that's where I did my internship. I also continued on contributing. I contributed in Swift, which is another OpenStack project afterwards, and still contributing in Storyboard as well. Currently, I have paused on contributing for a while, but starting my recent job and this hustle, but stable now. Surely I'm planning to go back contribution. It's always beneficial, whichever career level, on both technical and non-technical aspect, to be a contributor. Moving to Dawson Coleman.
Hi, yeah, I'm Dawson Coleman. I am a software developer at Lulzbot 3D Printers. We design and manufacture open source 3D printers. We're based out of Fargo, North Dakota, USA. My involvement in OpenStack actually goes back to my time at North Dakota State University, where I was able to participate in the OpenStack Octavia project as part of my capstone project, which is essentially where they throw out a bunch of projects, the students get to pick them, and we get to work on it for a semester to get some real world experience. I thought the open source aspect was really cool because now the code that I wrote is like still out there. I can still go look at it. I can still go visit it from time to time rather than it being locked behind a closed door. And cloud software is super cool. So that's kind of how I got involved.
Awesome. Thank you all for your introductions. Let's jump into the first question. So I'm sure you all obviously learned a lot when you came to the OpenStack community, but what most stuck with you that you enjoyed? Fatema, do you want to go first?
As a student, for the first time working remotely, gave me a great sense of independence. Also, was my first time diving deep into such a large code base. On the technical aspect, this gave me a great deal of debugging skills. Also, I learned how to navigate my way around the huge code base and fit my code pieces into it. And on the technical aspect, I have learned so much about working remotely and with different time zones. The time difference between us was about 9 hours or something. So I bet I've learned so much about that. Also, I really enjoyed working with different people from different cultures and different backgrounds with different perspectives. This added more depth and variety into my thought process for both technical and non-technical issues. And finally, I really got the actual chance of meeting those people live in team gathering and in the summit as well.
Anyone else? Something that was great about your experience? Oh, sorry.
Totally relate to that answer. Like I love, like, it's being able to work in a community that has people from all over the world with so many different cultures, with different, like, being in different time zones, remote, and all being able to, like, even though we have that distribution across the world, to be able to collaborate effectively. That is something that you cannot get elsewhere. And we are also developing very complex code. Like, we are basically doing software to manage data centers, right? That is kick-ass. And that is something I believe, like in my case, I think that I wouldn't be able to do that in a specific place. Like, an open source community is the only place I actually could find that. So totally relating to the answer, Fatema.
I mean, yeah, I think I had a pretty enlightening hands-on experience with Git. It was a little hard getting started, learning all those commands. It was my first time really working with it, and it was interesting, to say the least. A lot more confident in my Git skills now, but I think the greatest part of my experience with OpenStack so far is all the connections that I've made and the things that I've learned from my mentors. Victoria, she was one of them. Great help in getting started with Manila. Very generous with her time, very supportive. And that's something that I think open source community is very good with, is just always being there to help out the new contributors and just being overall the best community ever.
Yeah, I think to echo kind of what they were saying is kind of the ability to work on a real life product. Like, this isn't just some program that you're copying out of the textbook, like real companies are using this for real products. So that was kind of, a big step up from anything that I had seen before in terms of the scale, in terms of like, oh, we have a complete test suite that we actually, rely on. Like, oh, we're not going to let you merge if it's not Pet Bait, which are all great things, but if you're coming from an environment where that's kind of an afterthought or non-existent, that's a new thing to kind of wrap your head around. But, it's great to see projects that are a model of that and be able to see, like, hey, here are people who are putting all their stuff out in the open and you can just kind of learn from that workflow. So it's something that's really cool to be able to see and kind of model things after.
I know I feel really cool knowing that code that I've written is running at like CERN and maybe potentially at Blizzard and all of these other companies that like you use every day. That, yeah, it's awesome. It's so awesome to be a part of this community. So obviously there are tons of fun things that we all have learned working in open source, but what was the hardest part of getting started in the community? It could be technical or non-technical. Archana, you are the newest to the community of all of us, so do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So hardest part of getting started was basically the finding the right community or their project which is closely matched to your passion, in which you are completely interested. So when I found this and got into the Outreachy internship program, the challenging part was about getting started was to set up the whole DevStack environment. So, but the whole process seems to be tough in the beginning. But thanks to Victoria, my mentor, who completely helped me, and it was manageable at the end. And yeah, so this was also my first project with such large code base. So making myself familiar was a bit challenging too. Uh, so yeah.
Yeah, no, I think at the beginning of my journey into open source contributions, the biggest obstacle I had was gaining access to the right resources and to actually be able to contribute. Since my introduction was really through my university, I had a limited avenues that I could use. AWS was frankly too expensive for a college student, and there was an issue also with my teammate trying to get some stuff with the MOC, and it was just a lot of bureaucracy and red tape that we had to go through. And that was a bit of a hassle. But in the end, Kendall was actually the one to get in contact with the CEO of VexHost, and he generously provided us with some free accounts to be able to start and run a bunch of virtual machines. And then from there, it was just smooth sailing. So excellent work, Kendall.
More VexHost and Mohammed. They were the real MVP there, but
Yeah.
Happy to make the connection.
I'd agree with Archana. The start is kind of tough because we learn from those hard parts. But given I had both experiences on maybe parallel, if we can say, open interning and OpenStack was showing such time flexibility and remotely working with open community. On the other hand, I was interning in Microsoft, which is a corporate with the closed source, and we were working from the office. I found the open source facing some challenges about communicating with others with different time zones and working with people that I have never met. It was a bit intimidating, but eventually after like breaking the first ice, people are real friendly and they just jump to help whenever there is a question. You might never talk to this person before, but they are just, what's your question, let me help, log me, send me the logs, and it's really nice there. So it might be or look like it is rough, but it's just way to go.
Anyone else have other hard parts about getting started? Well, we'll come back to it a little bit and a little bit later here, but we can also move on. Obviously, we are a reasonably geographically distributed group. We have like Cairo and like a couple in the US, and well, I guess Victoria, you're in Madrid right now, not down in Buenos Aires.
Yep.
And Archana, you're over in India, right? But yeah, so geolocalization is definitely a thing. And obviously we all come from different places and we're raised in different cultures, and some of us speak different languages. Were there any parts of that were like a problem for you? Victoria, do you want to go first, having moved recently to another time zone?
Yeah, so oh god, this question actually has many sides to it. Like I can totally see geolocalization as being hard for many people. Like well, actually, I saw a tweet the other day going around about how remote work is allowing people that is in distributed areas to join a tech field they want and start contributing and kickstart their careers. And I totally relate to that question. Well, to that tweet actually, like the whole cloud computing concept was quite new. It's like it was bleeding edge technology. Like we were just starting there. It hasn't been so long ago, but technology is measured by dog years, and that well, cloud computing at that moment was a more popular thing in US and in Europe, of course, but not so much in Latin America. And well, I don't know about other areas, but I know that it was not so popular in Latin America. And actually being able to connect with contributors from other areas allowed me to learn about cloud computing at a very young age, I would say, and very early. But afterwards, like being there, it was really hard to find my next step. Like I finished my internship and there were not so many companies doing cloud computing, right? So it was a gap there that I couldn't fill right away. And I totally see this happening in other areas in which maybe a technology is more popular and is more adopted in some areas and not so much in some other countries. And being in that some other country, if you have to be inside, it is not easy at all. That for one side, from the geolocalization aspect, and for the culture and language barrier. Well, I still cannot forget my first OpenStack summit. It was in Portland, and well, I couldn't speak English as fluent as I wish. Like I was thinking in my head, like, oh, you know how smart I am in Spanish, right? But I couldn't actually communicate that to the people that I have around. Fortunately, I think the OpenStack community did a great job about that. Like usually, like since everybody takes into account about this situation, like everybody is very patient, everybody waits until you try to finish making the sentence and communicate your idea. Also, we implemented some other techniques in some cases, like, I don't know, writing down stuff instead of actually speaking up. And that helped me a lot. And that helped me become more proficient in English, of course, and be able to be more connected, more engaged, and move closer with the community, which is, well, already a community that moves really fast. Imagine if you get half of the information. So said that, I think that open source, remote work, there are things that are helping people, like very talented people, to kickstart their careers and to reach to their next level, which is something great.
I totally agree with Victoria here because given the current situation and how things have changed, the whole world is just heading to working from home and working remotely. This has been okay. So after I graduated, about 5 months or something, it was the pandemic started, and everyone just were shutting things off, and we need to work from home, and we need to know how to work and concurrently and sync things. I was like, my colleagues were, so they are seniors and stuff, but I have this skill because I have tried it before and I had the tools from my internship. So it may have been a challenge, but this challenge was just such beneficial and gave me a great edge in my CV and got me to currently working for a company with the headquarters in the US. So it's really beneficial, although it might be a struggle or a challenge at the beginning. So totally agree.
I Anyone else? I know we as an OpenStack community do as much as we can to make it welcoming in as many ways as possible. We, list meeting times in UTC so that everyone has the same amount of pain doing the time zone conversions. And we try to have everything text-based so that if you need like a translator, you can pipe the logs through that. And yeah, we try to be as friendly and open as we can, being an open source community. So we kind of touched on some of the other blockers that you have, but were there any specific technical blockers that you may have encountered? I know when I was working with Dawson on Octavia, DevStack gave the whole team quite a bit of problems, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I have never complained about DevStack before. No, so it was obviously, it's a little more complicated than your little hello world, type in a number script, that you get in CSI 101. So it was really interesting when we kind of had our meeting and we were suggested that we needed about 16 gigabytes of RAM to run this. And so for our computer? And they're like, no, for your VM instance. And, that's not something that everyone has lying around. I'm fortunate enough to, have a computer that can do that. But, another guy on our team had a laptop with 4 gigs of RAM, and that was, his workstation. So, there was the aspect of getting all that worked out. The computer science department at NDSU was generous enough to provide us with a pretty beefy server for getting that done. But of course, that also adds on the remote management part of that, which was a good learning experience with some pain points. But yeah, I certainly have to give a shout out to Michael Johnson here for patiently working through all my issues and my load balancers inexplicably not working. And all the little things that came with that. I can't tell you how many times I just completely deleted OpenStack and reinstalled, but we got there. I think a funny story with that is the thing that I was told to do when something didn't work was to start from scratch. And we ended up getting throttled by the university, I think, because after installing it once or twice, my download speed would go to 0. We never got that part figured out, but it was certainly something that showcased just the welcoming aspect of the community and just how many people were out there willing to solve all our dumb questions. So I think we really appreciated that a lot.
Definitely just scrap DevStack and start over. People that have been working on OpenStack for 5+ years, that's definitely a very common MO. We just kill it, make a new one. It's fine, whatever.
We can dream.
Yeah, maybe someday. Anybody else have technical blockers that they ran into when they were getting started?
Oh, yeah. So my biggest fear about, 8 years ago, nowadays I feel more comfortable with it, but it was Git. In fact, I started calling it this it's a nunchaku. You never know when you are going to hit with it in your face. And at the beginning, I was a really a newbie. I didn't understand anything of what was going on. And every time I had to execute a Git command, for me, it was pure stress and fear that I was going to lose everything and I was going to, start stepping onto some other people's job. It was it was fear. But thanks to my mentor, Shuli, she
Oh no.
I'm back? All right.
Yeah, I think we lost you for a sec, but you're back now.
Okay, cool. So yeah, it took me a while. And even now, when I see people struggling with Git, I really get in their skin, and it was like, okay, I got this. Like, we are going to do this and that, and everything is going to be fine. And that's how we solve things. But
I guess Victoria is done, but I really wanted to build on that because I just was learning AngularJS to start with my contributions, and I thought that this was the technical blocker that I have. It's a really huge code base, but then I got the work done, and I cannot count how many times I'm just on Kindle and I got pushed, but I couldn't publish it. I do not really know how it goes, and the many times I got detached heads, and the many times she helped me around it. Oh my god, that was so much. But I managed to learn that through the internship with mentoring. I got over it, and now I'm killing it. I just can solve any get issue that with any other colleague. So it's really get journey that you cannot get anywhere else to know the process, the review, and how to use the right comments. So it's totally beneficial. Might be a little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Git is definitely not the easiest thing to work with in the world, but I do think that Git review and Garrett is a little bit better a system than GitHub, which I know is a controversial opinion, but yeah.
totally agree.
It looks like we have some people. David Medberry, totally awesome community member. He was talking about his Git and pains as well, and totally agrees that Garrett is the best open source tool. But yeah, thank you for engaging today on YouTube and LinkedIn and stuff. Definitely keep sending your questions in and comments, and we'll keep showing them. So thank you for participating, everybody. For each one of you, what is the best thing about working in an open source community? Obviously, there are tons of things. I have a lengthy list. But if you could only pick one thing, what's the best thing? Victoria, do you want to start?
Sure. All right. I think the best thing for me about working in open source is that you get to work with the best people, like in each technology, like the most experts, the most experience, and all my colleagues, like they all have so much experience and so many things to share. That is something that it's something I appreciate a lot. Actually, in some OpenInfra summit, I would run into some person, and somebody else would say, "Oh, you know this guy? This is the creator of Ceph," and it's like, "Oh God, can I talk with him?" it's like a superstar to me, and having that possibility is something you don't have everywhere. So I totally see that's one of the most important part of being on open source community.
What resonates with me is that you are free to choose what you're working on. You just go find a project that's interesting to you and you genuinely care about, either as a user or might be technically the technical aspect of it that you are interested in working on. It's just not that. It gets better because you see the feature that you have worked on or initiated yourself, and in the hands of the other users as well around the globe. Anyone can use it as well. So, and sometimes this user is yourself. So adding a feature that you needed or fixing something that just was aching you, it's just perfect. Also, you always end up learning something new and satisfied about the output and the product. Mainly, you're just making a difference and you just can see it out there. So that's perfect.
Who's next? Archana, you want to go next?
Yeah. Okay, so if I choose the best thing about being in an open source community, then I can choose a mentor. I've started my journey with OpenStack with my mentor Victoria. She helped me so much from when I saw her tweet on Twitter, like she's finding someone for the OpenStack Manila project. I just reached out to her, and she helped me so much, like giving me a way, like how can I start with the project, joining, also join IRC communication channels, and what I have to do next. Also help me like choosing bugs, like to work on, and the hardest part in that was like the code base was in Python, but like the support she gave me, like understanding whole code base, and solving and working on fixes. That was like best part, like choosing a mentor helped me so much in that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the obviously, other than the collaboration aspect, it's awesome to be able to work with so many like-minded people. I'd say another thing that was unique, especially when you're able to do it as a part of a requirement for something else, like for school or for work, is that, usually when you are doing that sort of work, it's, for some sort of proprietary need or purpose, and you can say that you participated in it, but once you're done with it, like, it's kind of behind closed doors. But the thing I think is cool about the open source contribution side of that is you kind of still have ownership of the code in a way that, someone who's working for a closed source product definitely doesn't have. So I alluded to it earlier, but I can still go back and, I can look at Octavia and I can see what I did. Obviously, I don't run load balancers in my basement as of now, but it is cool that in that aspect, I still have some sense of ownership in that. And I think that's something that you don't really get anywhere else.
Yeah, no, I think my absolute favorite part about being part of this community is the community itself. Very collaborative, very supportive. I mean, I literally spent hours talking to my mentor, Gotham, working out some differences between the documentation and what I was getting on my local machine. And I have never seen that happen anywhere else, where I can like work on a problem for hours, if not days, with someone, and they're just there with, any answers to what I like, the questions I may have and stuff like that. It's just, so satisfying to have someone there to, help with a problem, and then finally getting it fixed, getting it done. The sense of accomplishment that you get with, working that, and then with your team as well. It's just amazing.
Awesome. Well, so comically enough, Gotham actually just commented on LinkedIn and asked, what is one thing you want to do to make the community more inviting to a new contributor like you? So if you want to answer that, Ashley, you can start, or whoever, if you have an idea.
I just say that people should know about the opportunities. Some opportunities are just need some digging to be out there. So they are doing Outreachy, for example, they are doing a great job about advertising about themselves and inviting people. It has been, to the extent of my knowledge, it has been spreading more and more, and they are achieving more, getting to more audience. So keeping that going is what will, I think, get more people to contribute. Providing the opportunities that the open source is already doing, and just promoting that these are opportunities that are there, that you can always just touch the code, fix it, and you did the new job and you did a great work and we are all supporting you. It's just once you get in there, you cannot go out. So it's just pulling them.
You know, I have to agree. I was in a unique position in that my introduction to this was through my university, through my coursework. So I never saw anything about, hey, do you want to join the open source community? Or this is what we're about, or this is how you can get started. I never heard of the Outreachy program until I had already been introduced to the community. And then I would see all the information that's out there. But I think getting more people to share, I suppose, or just get the word out there is something that would be beneficial.
So doing things like this today hopefully
Yes.
helps with that. Awesome. Anyone else want to answer what is one thing you think you can do to make the community more inviting to new contributors like yourselves?
I think the sort of like outreach or just knowledge that it exists is a big deal, because going into it, I was pretty intimidated sitting down and looking at all the code like, oh boy, what have I gotten myself into? But the part that made it really great was that all the people involved were actually really willing to help me. I think I was told at one point, oh yeah, just ask me about anything, even if it's how to CD into a directory, So I think that's something that is super helpful as a beginner. It's maybe not necessarily obvious if you've just never interacted with the community. But once you know about that, it really flows naturally from that, I think, especially in OpenStack.
Awesome. Well, looks like we got another question in here. It's kind of a little bit more general, but besides open source, what led you all to software or technology as an interest and a career?
So actually, the summer between junior and senior year in high school, that summer, I did a Girls Who Code program. It was like 7 or 8 weeks. And we touched upon, just introduction to software. We did some Scratch, we did some Python, we worked a little bit with Tiny Robot. And that summer was the best summer of my life. After that, I was like, okay, technology, software development, this is something that I want to explore, that I want to learn more about, that I want to work with. And then that senior year, I applied to a whole bunch of engineering colleges, universities, just hoping for the chance to learn more and do more in this field. And I was lucky enough to get accepted to Boston University. I completed my bachelor's, and I am so happy, so satisfied, so proud of this field. Like, it's just amazing. You can do anything, and it's just great.
Well, for me, I was like in my 9th grade. We study coding with Visual Basic at that time. So I had my little brother. He was about 4 years or something. I created a whole game for him with photos and the names of what is in this photo, and the feeling and the achievement of creating something and from scratch, and how it built up and how he enjoyed it was just amazing. So I went searching and found that this is a major that you can study, and since then I put it as my goal and my study in college to be, and I graduated from it. So mission accomplished, kinda.
I can go next, I guess. So in my case, all credits goes to my mom. She is such a nerd. Like when I was growing up, she would totally, encourage me to do, smart hacking scripts with the machine that we have. I remember it was an AMD K6 with very, very low RAM. I would spend some time with her learning about how to use a computer. And after that, I guess that which ended up kickstarting my full interest in programming was like, I'm going to say was year 2000. I was 13-year-old, I think. And IRC was the platform for, making friends and meeting communities in my area. So I would spend summers like just connecting to IRC and making friends and, trying to learn about how to write plugins for IRC for the clients, right? And that kind of led me to open source as it is, and the first GNU Linux distributions. And well, after that, I started getting more involved. And when I could decide what I wanted to do, obviously programming was something that was very interesting to me. So that's how I'm here. I should add, my mom, being such a nerd, now she makes like she doesn't know anything. So I go there and fix stuff for her. So
So now you're Geek Squad, yeah.
Yes. Every Christmas, at any time, go there, fix her computer.
Just about any time I go home, my parents have like a laundry list of things that they need me to fix on their phones and computers and stuff. So I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, in my house, it's always the printer. No one knows how to use the printer but me.
Well, printers are just cursed. I don't think there's much that can be done about that.
Well, we still haven't heard from Dawson or Archana. Do either of you want to talk about how you got into technology and stuff?
Yeah, so it all started when I got the Google Udacity front-end developer nano degree scholarship. So that's how I started my career in tech field, and with that I joined some technical communities. So with the help of that scholarship, I started my journey in the front end development, building things which I imagined. So everything was like when I started front end, it's like I can build anything what I can imagine, and the community there was like so supportive. Like whatever the help you need, there are always so many people out there to help you. Also. After that, I started join some technical communities and arrange some workshops or events, meetups, and all. So, yeah, that was quite interesting, and that's how I started in my software development field.
Yeah, for me, I think like it was for a lot of young boys, I think I can trace it back to playing video games and kind of saying like, there's someone who could make this. It'd be so cool to like have an idea and then bring it into reality. And I think I kind of pursued that through just learning, having opportunities to learning to program and all that. But I think like as of today, I'm not a game developer and don't intend to be, but it was more of a matter of falling in love with the process, I guess, and sort of just, being able to dive deep into something technical and just being able to think something and then make it happen, or just that kind of like first principles reasoning where you can, if the more you know about something, just being able to break it down and rebuild it better. Like, I think that's just the coolest thing ever. And that's kind of what's driven me through my entire career.
Awesome. Yeah, there are so many different ways to get into like technology and then open source, but I'm glad we've all found our way to OpenStack together through different paths. So maybe one final question before we start wrapping up here about advice. So what is like one piece of advice that you would give to somebody taking their first steps and getting involved in open source or OpenStack specifically? Archana, do you want to go first again?
Yeah. So what advice I can give to future contributor, like if you're done picking the organization and their projects, make sure to read the documentation of that project, and this is going to be your friend to your entire journey of the project. And also, once you are done picking some issues or beginner friendly issues, or your mentors are going to assign you some issues, this is not going to be solved in 1 or 2 days. This is the that's a learning process you are going to enter. It's going to take so much effort and so much time of you, and it's going to be a learning process for you. And if you get stuck somewhere, reach out to your mentor and the community member. And if somehow it's everything not seems okay, and you can also choose Stack Overflow or some other developer forums. So yeah.
Yeah,
I
no,
can
you go ahead. No, I definitely make use of the documentation. There is a lot of information out there on what tests have to be written, the code style checks you have to pass, just so much out there. And then once you kind of know what it is that you have to do, if you don't know where to start, I would recommend looking at the code that's already been published, look at what other people have contributed, and see what their style is, what methodology do they use, what functions did they write, what did they make use of, like what was going on, how did they get to where they got, and then just kind of use that, write your own code, and then ask someone to review it. Obviously post it to Garrett, and if you're not getting the attention, go to IRC and say, hey, I need a little help, can someone check this out for me? And they will. So definitely do that.
just cannot agree more with Ashley and Archana. It's just, you need just to start. The advice to start is just to start. Dive your head first. It's the biggest challenge is how to start. So just start, clone the repo, read the documentation of the how to build, and you will definitely find the issue that you had in the documentation. If not, you will just go and ask someone, ask on the IRC, and you will always find someone in your time zone or out of your time zone, maybe a while later, but there's always someone who would answer. So just dive with head first, and the community will catch you.
I think one of the best tips that I received was don't be shy, because if you don't ask questions, you're not going to get answers. And I think I'd really break it down into two different pillars of, what it takes to have productive conversations with people. First, I'd say don't be shy. And then second, just, value other people's time. Just, make sure you're doing your due diligence with, the issues or your troubleshooting. As I know, it's easy to get frustrated, and maybe I would just say like, hey, my load balancer isn't working, just trying to that little extra step of just trying to explain everything that and realize that there's another person on the other end who wants to help you, but at the same time needs maybe some background, or doesn't only has so much time in their schedule. The cool thing about open source is we're all volunteering our time to each other, and I think so long as you're aware of that, but also not being afraid to participate in that, I think it's really hard to go wrong regardless of who you're collaborating with.
Really, really good advice. Yeah. Victoria, I think you're the only one that hasn't answered yet.
Yeah, and also, well, actually, my advice is quite similar to the one that Dawson just mentioned. Like, I think that contributing to an open source community teaches you how to make good questions. Like with time, you will learn that considering that how busy is everyone in the community, and how fast things move, is like every time you hit an issue, you try to summarize everything in a single line to explain what's going on with your environment, and you go there, you ask, and well, being able to do smart questions is definitely, well, ask questions in the smart way. That's a different thing. I hope that you understand me, but that's something that is a very good advice. And related to that, make connections. Don't hesitate on asking people. Like as mentioned, like everybody is quite busy and there is a lot of things going on, but everybody is willing to help, and you don't need to be blocked in, I don't know, for 1 week with a single issue. If you have people in the community that may be able to help you out and get you right back at you where you want to be in no time. And also those connections help you to get to your next place, like to the next step. So making connections, learning from them, sharing with them is very, very important.
That is excellent advice as well. It's all about the connections. We are a successful community because we focus on communication with one another, and open communication being one of the principles of our community definitely makes for a more successful, resilient, strong community and better software as a result. So we've kind of talked a little bit about the Outreachy program, but Victoria, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the next round and stuff?
Of course, I always love talking about Outreachy. So Outreachy is a paid internship that aims to bring underrepresented people to contribute to open source communities. These internships last for 3 months. And the whole process is that interns are paired with mentors, which are contributors in the community. And those mentors guide them through the whole process, both in technical matters, of course, as we just discussed, but also from the career side, career advice, and helping them make these connections that we were talking about. Currently, there is a round that is ongoing. Actually, Archana here is part of that round. And next round is going to be on September. Well, actually, applications open in September, is due in October, and the next round is going to be, usually is from December to March next year. The goal for Outreachy is to increase the diversity in open source. And well, after, I think it has been at least 8 years in OpenStack, and probably more, like before OpenStack, it was only for the GNOME community. I think it's a bit more than 10 years. Then I will ask somebody in the Outreachy coordination to correct me if I'm wrong. But after 10 years, a bit more 10 years of doing this, there has been a representation from groups that historically has never been contributing to open source.
Well, obviously it's working, because like our panel here today is like mostly women instead of men, like normal. So Dawson, you're in the minority today. But yeah, so aside from Outreachy, we have the Grace Hopper Open Source Day coming up in July. It is a free all-day hackathon that includes workshops. The OpenStack community will be participating, so if you're interested in getting started upstream, I advise you look into the Open Source Day. All skill levels are welcome. Our focuses are going to be on like getting you started in the community, getting your environment set up, helping you push a patch to our like test sandbox repository. It looks like, according to the website, there are about 730 spots left, but it is like a global event, so I'm guessing it will fill up. So go check it out if you're interested. And then if you're not able to attend that or get into Outreachy, or you're not lucky enough to have a university that works with OpenStack like Boston University or North Dakota State University, we have other resources accessible all the time. So we have the contributor guide, which basically goes over all of the introductions, basic things about getting into the community. Our structure, our governance, how to get connected to IRC and set up Garrett, teaches you some Git commands, which we kind of talked about as being a little bit difficult sometimes. And if, as you go through the contributor guide, you have questions, please reach out to anybody in the first contact SIG. We have a link here that has a list of all of the people that are involved in that SIG and their time zone and also their IRC nickname. So hopefully you can get to IRC, but if not, we have mailing lists that you can send to and be like, help, I need help. And then we also try to do a training, a like virtual lately, you know, because coronavirus, but sometimes in person, Upstream Institute, and that covers everything that is in the contributor guide. We have talked a little bit about running a virtual one later this year. So if you're interested in doing that, keep an eye on the docs.openstack.org/upstream-training website. And when we get dates set for that, they will be there. So yeah, thank you so much to all of our awesome guests today. You've been fantastic. We really appreciate you joining us from all over the world. If anyone in the audience has an idea for a future episode, we really would love to hear from you. You can submit your ideas at ideas.openinfra.live. Submission deadline to be included in like an August or September episode would be this Friday, actually, July 16th. So get them in. Next week, we have another great episode lined up. We have guests joining from Canonical and City Network and Mirantis and also T-Systems to talk about current job openings, company cultures, and what they're looking for in candidates. So if you want to get a job in open source, you know, building off of today's episode, definitely tune in next week. And mark your calendars. We hope you're all able to join us at 14 UTC for next Thursday. Thank you again to everybody joining me here today. Victoria, Archana, Ashley, Fatema, and Dawson, you've all been amazing. And we'll see you next week for another Open Infra Live episode.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.